Welcome to the Humanistic approach. In this session, we're going to look at humanistic psychology, free will, self-actualization, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We're going to focus on the idea of the self. We're going to talk about congruence, the role of conditions and worth, and the influence on counseling psychology. Some key terms for you then to start off with. Hierarchy of needs. Maslow organized human needs into a tier system called the hierarchy of needs, with base survival needs right at the bottom and then higher self-actualization at the top. Self-actualization for Maslow is the highest of human needs, which involves becoming all that we are capable of being. The self is a concept linked to self-esteem and self-image. And conditions of worth refer to those conditions imposed by significant people, e.g. parents, partners and so forth, in order for them to love us. And we'll look at examples of this in a minute. Free will, the capacity to make changes to our lives and pursue goals. Congruence, a key quality of a person-centered therapy that refers to being genuine or authentic rather than putting on some kind of front. The origins then. The main origins of humanistic psychology is its birth out of things like the psychodynamic and behaviorist approaches. It was really discontented with those, with psychodynamics' emphasis on negative behavior and the behaviorist approach focused on just sort of stimulus response learning. The humanists, they concentrate on the positive idea about mental health and positive attributes of happiness and contentment. So this is the humanistic approach. The focus is on the individual, the self, and we're talking about conscious experience. It's a holistic approach. It sees the human being as a whole organism, not reductionist. It detests behaviorism, dislikes Freud's focus on negative effects like jealousy and misery and fear, and its concerns are happiness and generosity. It developed in the 60s at about the same time as the cognitive approach. And the main two researchers are Maslow and Rogers. This is a hierarchy of needs. According to Maslow, our physiological needs are at the bottom. These are things like food, water. Then we have safety, which is shelter and protection, love and belonging, partnerships and support, esteem, and then self-actualization. This is the ultimate goal of life, is to achieve our full potential. Maslow estimated that about 1% of the human population are self-actualizers. The rest of us, though, can reach this peak at different times in our lives, but we don't live there. We travel. Once we achieve one level of the hierarchy, we then need to travel up to the next, and happiness is very much linked to progressing up the hierarchy. According to the humanistic approach, psychologically healthy people meet these criteria. They have objective perception of reality, acceptance of their own nature, commitment, dedication to some kind of work, naturalness, independence, intense mystical peak experiences, empathy for all humanity, resistance to conformity, democratic characteristics, and keenness to be creative. To achieve all these makes you a healthy individual, psychologically. Carl Rogers developed the idea of conditions of worth, the self, and free will. He talks about a story when he's a young man. He goes down into the potato cellar. It's dark and dingy, there's not a lot of air or light, and he sees his potatoes sprouting in the darkness. And he says, all organisms have a yearning for personal growth, but for humans it's psychological growth. And it's an innate tendency that drives us. He talks about self and self-esteem, the idea of self and self-image, that self-esteem is measured by the gap the gap between the ideal self, our sort of perfect self, and our own self-image. There are ways of increasing our self-esteem, and one is to come up with a more realistic concept of ideal self and bring it down a peg, or boost up your self-image and recognize the values and attributes that you have. Influences on counseling. Developed a client-centered approach. And the concept of unconditional positive regard. Unconditional positive regard is that if you're a parent and you say, if you do this, it will make me happy, that is conditional positive regard. You know, I will only like you if you do X. I will only appreciate you if you do Y. What Rogers is arguing for is an unconditional positive regard, that irrespective of what the patient says, or in this case, client, you give them positive regard. Healthy people for Rogers are those who are open to all experience, have an ability to live fully in the moment, will follow their instincts rather than the will of others, they have freedom of thought and action, and they're creative. So, evaluations. Rogers had a huge impact on psychotherapy, and Maslow to a lesser degree. Maslow had a bigger impact on businesses, actually, and if you work in a business, you'll see Maslow's hierarchy of needs somewhere. Unfortunately, many charlatans have jumped on the human potential bandwagon, and there's a lot of hokey, positive psychology out there about growth. The humanist approach, though, has no clear scientific theory or tradition. There are no great studies, no great objective research, and as a result, it's highly subjective. You know, self-actualization, what does that even mean? Your self-actualization might just be completely different to mine. What is the self-actualization of a homeless man? And can it even be falsified? However, this counts as evaluation as well. You can use applications as evaluations, remember. There are loads of applications for this theory in education, in therapy, in management. We are engaging in some of this now, encouraging you to set your own goals, to drive your own learning. Therapy, we can help patients understand their own needs by going through the hierarchy. And management training, we can understand the needs of staff to help motivate them, deal with the physical needs, make sure they're well fed and watered and they have somewhere nice to go to the toilet, and then build on that intellectual needs. One of the things Google does is it has all these it has a free bar that if you work for Google you're entitled to go to. It has all these fun activities in the office, slides and fireman's poles and all that stuff. And it lets you spend, I think it's 10 or 20% of your work time working on your personal projects. These are all things designed to hit different elements of the hierarchy. The physical needs, in their case, beer, I guess, and food. They have a canteen as well. The emotional needs, psychological needs, and so forth. Okay. Here's a question that I'd like you to answer and bring your answer to next lesson. Liam is in his first year at university. He is not enjoying his business studies course very much. Liam's dad put pressure on Liam to choose the course because he wants Liam to follow him in the family business. Liam thinks he might be better off doing history. How might you explain this scenario using the humanistic approach? Explain Liam's feelings about university course, refer to the self and conditions of worth and stuff like that. Little hint, focus quite on Rogers' work, but obviously there are links to Maslow as well. That's supposed to say aunt, so I'm not sure why it says aunt. Here's a second one to have a look at. 10-year-old Sam enjoys reading, playing computer games and instructing model airplanes. He is happy doing these activities in his room. Sam's dad is very sporty and wants Sam to excel at rugby. Sam is very frightened and getting high in rugby and of letting the team down, so he's worried about letting the team. So, Sam's dad is very sporty and wants Sam to excel at rugby. Sam is very frightened of getting hurt in rugby and of letting the team down. He dreaded sports practice, but he wants to please his father and to win his approval. Sam's dad says he will be so proud of Sam when he scores his first try. How might Rogers explain the above behaviour? 6-mark question. Do your best. Bring all your answers with you next time and we'll go through them and look at some model answers. Thank you very much for everything and I will see you next time. Bye.